Is this true, the idea of Islamic tolerance and coexistence? Is this a reality?
No, it isn't. As long as a Muslim is not equal to a Christian and a Christian is not equal to a Muslim, how could be their tolerance? Even today, in those countries, a Christian cannot be a head of a department, cannot be the prime minister, cannot be the president. So where is the equality? Where is the tolerance? Tolerance, a religion that claims to be a peaceful religion, a religion of peace. How could that be that whosoever criticizes it or discards it for another religion or for no other faith would actually face a death sentence? We are not talking about what people did. It is all based in the Islamic manuals. It comes from the Quran and the Sunnah, the sources of Islamic Sharia. And if those sources declare these things, that it is not to be tolerated, a Jew and a Christian are not to be tolerated. They are tolerated in terms of on Islamic terms, meaning that they must be humiliated, they must accept that they are subjugated, they must accept that they are less people, they are subhuman to Muslims, that they have made a crime, they have committed a crime by refusing and rejecting the finality of Muhammad as the prophet of Islam and as the prophet of all religions.
What do you want?
Yes, well, I mean, Islam is, to say Islam is a religion of peace is a myth, and to say that it is a tolerant religion, what is the definition of tolerance? I don't think we have defined tolerance. Tolerance in accepting your views, that you're entitled to have your views and independently practice them, and we will not be hurt, and we would live together. But to call a non-Muslim profane, and the Quran declares that, then to have me profane, to say that I'm not equal to a Muslim, that in itself is not a tolerance.
Sam, if we accept, and understand the way I'm putting this, if we accept, both of you are saying that Islam by its nature, at heart, if it's really practiced properly, has a certain degree of what we would think of as intolerance, is it possible that Muslims living in the West could carve out a new reformed Islam that would embrace Western ideas of tolerance?
Reformed Islam, if by reformed you mean the Reformation as it took place in Europe among the Christians, that Reformation took place because they went back to the scriptures, they went back to the Bible. And they discovered that man shall live by faith alone, and therefore they pushed out the papacy and there was a Reformation. When Islam will go back to its Reformation, to go back to its script, to back to its text, what would find? They would find actually that they are living rather a loose life, and the laws and the harshness of it, that is what is exactly happening in Europe today. People are going back to Islam, and therefore there is a resurgence of Islam. They cannot reform it. Reform it in what? Who has the view of reformation? Islam cannot be reformed because it has been closed. It is a divine revelation, as Batior explained, and there is nobody that can add or remove from it.
So, this is fascinating. A more liberal, pluralistic Islam is a denial of the original text.
Yes.
The conclusions are quite terrifying then. You're saying that the more people who are Orthodox Muslim, the less we can have a pluralistic world.
That's true. Well, Mike, I would like to return back to the issue of the beauty in the Quran that you referred to. On what basis did you come to that conclusion?
I think there's some poetic and lyrical lines in the Quran.
What sort of a beauty when it says that men are and women are not equal, Islamizing and telling that the Jews and the Christians have turned and tampered their scriptures, and falsifying history, that Abraham was a Muslim and not a Jew, Moses was a Muslim and not a Jew, and there is nothing called Judaism, that Christ was not crucified. Which part is beautiful? Their view, but when the other person who holds those views is termed as a kafir, as not only an unbeliever but an infidel and an apostate who is anti-Islamic, and this will translate into being punished, and it is a punishable crime, then the beauty disappears, whatever kind of lyric or poetic beauty there may be, because beauty and reality are two different things.
I think there's much beauty in the Old Testament, but I'm sure you would agree, you're a scholar, there are aspects of the Old Testament that can be quite chilling. There is genocide in the Old Testament. that there are elements of the Old Testament that are quite brutal. We read it and we understand that there's a logic here, there's a history that can be quite bleak, but it's there.
Thank
We're not
you
trying to
for
purify.
saying it, Michael, that it is a history. The Quran is not a history. It is a word of Allah, valid from eternity to eternity, and therefore applicable. So when the Quran says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَ أَوْلِيَاءً لَكُمْ, O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and the Christians as your friends and your protectors, and whosoever does is one of them. That is not limited to the time of Muhammad. When it says, لِتَجِدِنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسَ عَدَوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودُ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, you'll find the worst of the enemies, the most venomous of the enemies of those who have believed, meaning Muslims, are the Jews and the polytheists, meaning also the Christians. If that is the case, this is valid for eternity, valid as long as mankind lives. Then if that is the case, this is not history. Thank you for saying that the Old Testament is history, because it is.
You're going to think about this one for a while.
It looks like it, but what the new trends that we see emerging in the Western world is rather disappointing. It says actually the exact contrary. Because when you look at it, the Sharia financing is introduced, the Islamic banking is introduced, the Sharia law is being demanded, the inequality, all of these, you see, is coming on in its droves.